Now, this review is a little later than I would have liked it to be because my first viewing was ruined by a bad crowd and I wanted to see it again to, have this pristine experience. Then the second crowd was just as bad. So, to the group of guys a couple rows behind me who wouldn't stop having out loud conversations with each other to their friends across the cinema, despite me shushing you, I'm vengeance. The Batman is a movie that I have been looking forward to for quite some time. Now, more so as a Matt Reeves fan than a Batman fan. Now, I know this has been in the pipeline for a while and it's been touted as like a gritty, more comic accurate, standalone Batman story. And look, I've never been particularly enamored with Batman as a character. He's made for some great stories, like The Killing Joke is a classic story. The Dark Knight is obviously one of the greatest comic book films of all time. But I'm more here just to see more Matt Reeves blockbusters because I think that that man is one of the best, if not the best, and most underappreciated directors working in the blockbuster sphere right now. I think his two Planet of the Apes movies are like god tier blockbusters. They're bleak, they're beautiful, they're lonely, they're so wonderfully put together and like care. There's been care put into them, and he obviously cares about not just making money and spectacle, but telling a story. And that's exactly what Matt Reeves has done with the Batman. Now, this is a spoiler free review, so I won't go too deep into plot, but the Batman we meet here, played by Robert Pattinson, he's into his second year on the job. So thankfully, we forego the origin story, but he's still finding his feet as the Caped Crusader. And it opens with this like really, really great noirish monologue from him with this great Nirvana needle drop, and it really sets the tone for the entire thing. And there's a lot of familiar story stuff here. Like it's about a Gotham that is being eaten alive by corruption, and it's about Bruce trying to figure out how to be a good Batman. And there's so much that this film gets right that I probably can't even cover it in this whole review. So this is probably just going to be a real scattershot me rambling about stuff I liked. It's 3 hours long, but it really never feels that, and it never loses focus either. And the myriad of villains that pop up here, like the Riddler and the Penguin and Carmine Falcone, they don't feel shoehorned in. They all feel like they're either being set up or they're just pieces of the larger story that's being told here about a city that is in need of a hero. And they all play their part so well. So talking about the performances, Robert Pattinson, I always had faith in him as Batman. I'm a huge fan of him as an actor, and I think he's a wonderful choice for this. And it's a great way for him to like step back into an iconic sort of studio movie role and really, I wouldn't say redeem himself because that man needs no redemption, but to the general public, show, hey, look, I'm a fucking actor, all right? This movie really focuses on the Batman side of his character, and it really nails that Bruce feels a lot more like himself when he's under the mask. And there's so much anxiety and vulnerability and uncertainty to the way he plays Bruce Wayne. Like, he has receded so far into being the Batman that he almost doesn't know how to interact with human beings. I really love Batman's relationship with Jim Gordon in this one, played by the great Jeffrey Wright. And they're almost like a duo solving crimes together, and there's a trust between them that even though Jim doesn't know his identity, yeah, there's a trust between them and they're figuring this stuff out together. And there's real humanity that Wright brings to the character in the earlier stages of his career. Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle is as awesome as I'm sure you've heard. There's a great sort of DIY nature to her costume. Her chemistry with Batman is really, really good, and she brings a lot of the emotional core to the film, and she really nailed it, and honestly maybe the best on-screen Catwoman. I know there's not a lot of competition, but she really feels like a complete character, and you could take her in any direction after this. My favorite part of the film was probably Paul Dano's performance as Riddler. I know he's probably been a little bit divisive, but I'm a huge fan of Paul Dano, and without knowing a ton about the character, I think this was a really, really great modern day telling of the Riddler story that blends this gritty sort of Zodiac killer iconography with some of the campy mannerisms that we've come to associate with the character. And it almost feels like a Riddler origin story in that regard. But I was with him the whole time. Paul Dano's performance is amazing. The things he does with his voice while he's under the mask, he's genuinely scary. And when he's unmasked, he is just oh, there's one scene in particular where he really gets to let loose, and I was like, man, give this guy an Oscar nomination. I'm serious. Like, I know nothing touches Ledger in The Dark Knight, but Paul Dano was really incredible in this, and I think one of my favorite performances in any superhero film in recent memory. Colin Farrell as the Penguin, so good. Again, you feel like they're setting up this character for bigger things, but the makeup work on him is astounding, like the way it moves, and you can see Colin Farrell in there, but what he does with his voice, he really becomes this character, and he gives the film some of its levity, but at the same time, he is menacing and intimidating, and yeah, loved him. I loved every performance in this is so good, right down to the bit players. Like Matt Reeves and co did such a good job casting this thing, and that is like half the battle with these sorts of movies. Actually, I think my favorite thing about this film is the tone. It strikes such a perfect balance between like comic book campiness and like gritty seriousness, and it really feels more like a comic book come to life than any other film I've seen. Because yes, I know all the talk is about how like dark and gritty and brooding it is and realistic it is, but also there's some pretty cartoonish stuff that goes on here. Like the Penguin is funny at times, the Riddler yells and acts goofy. There's a lot of cartoony stuff in this that the film pulls off while still taking itself 100% seriously. And so many movies like this feel the need to like sort of point out the ridiculousness of what's happening whenever it acts like a comic book. And I really appreciated that because yeah, I think a lot of movies these days are afraid to be campy, and this film isn't, and it manages to really create this brilliant tone that like it's a world that could be our own, but at the same time, it's decidedly not. And it is this Gotham City. It is this world where superheroes and villains unite. But there are enough elements there to think, man, this Riddler guy, this could be a guy that pops up in our own backyard, you know. I love the tone of this film, and I think Matt Reeves really knew exactly what he was doing from the get-go and accomplished it brilliantly. Michael Giacchino's score is incredible, one of the best superhero scores I've heard, maybe the best Batman theme. Like, I've been listening to it pretty much nonstop since I saw the film. It's emotional, it's badass, and yeah, that's the thing, it's badass, and it's the film really positions Batman as this mythological figure that strikes fear into the hearts of criminals, and the score is instrumental into getting this across. And I really like the Batman's arc in this without giving away too many spoilers. You know, he starts out as this very like symbol of fear and vengeance, and the movie's just about him kind of, for lack of a better phrase, becoming the hero this city deserves. I am going to give the Batman a 9 out of 10, and it's a grade that could very well go up on subsequent viewings because the second time I watched this, I was just glued to my seat, glued to the screen. The distracting guys in the theater actually didn't really ruin it that much because the film was just so engrossing, and I really think that this is something special. And you know, I didn't want to buy too much into the hype. I didn't want to buy into the every single new great comic book movie is one of the best ones ever, but I really think that the Batman achieved something special, and it's a film that I'm going to go back to a number of times, and I think it really cements Matt Reeves as just he knows what he's doing, man. He knows what he's doing, and they should just hand him the keys and the reins to do whatever he wants from here on out because he has earned it. Apologies for how rambly this review was. That's just kind of how I feel about the movie. It's just there's so much going on that I love in it. It gets so much right that any minor flaws that I might have really didn't matter at all. And anytime a 3-hour film flies by like that, it has to be commended. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Sorry the reviews have been a little sporadic. I am very busy with work at the moment, but they're going to keep coming as quickly as I can get them out. Follow me on Letterboxd, follow me on Instagram. Have a wonderful day.